This week I made this quilt, and I'm going to show you how you can make one too. This is what's called a whole cloth quilt or a cheater quilt. And the reason it's called that is because the quilt top is one full piece of fabric. So the design is printed on the fabric. In my Spoonflower shop, I have a lot of different full cloth quilt designs that I've done. Each one is designed to be printed on 1 yard of the Organic Cotton Sateen fabric, and that is going to give you a 36 by 56 inch quilt, which makes for a nice throw size or a large baby quilt or a toddler quilt. This particular one I made for a baby, so I did flannel on the back because I like that sort of more snuggly feel for a baby quilt.
So let's get started. I pre-washed and pressed my fabrics, but I didn't pre-wash my batting. If you're using a typical quilting cotton for the back, you'll probably need about 1 3/4 yards. You'll want your quilt batting to be about 2 to 4 inches larger on each side, and your backing to be about 2 to 4 inches larger than that. Here are my measurements for this one. I sketched out where I'm going to quilt. I used this fabric pencil to draw on the dark areas. I'm going to sew where the colors meet, but I also want to add in some lines in between. I'm just drawing freehand mountain lines here. In general, I like to have my quilt lines no more than 4 inches apart. I use the Friction pen to draw in the light areas. The Friction ink erases with heat like an iron. For the sun, I utilize some dishes and a curved ruler. I just eyeball the distance between the lines. I'm not really interested in things being too perfect. With the curved ruler, you find the section of it that most closely matches the curve you're trying to achieve, and you only trace that small section and then you move the ruler. For the straight stripes, I measured the width of each of them and then added a straight line in between. I also like to keep this marble tile on top as a weight so that my fabric doesn't slide off the table accidentally. This is how I decided to lay out the stitching for this quilt, but you can do it in whatever way you like. If this is your first time quilting, you may want to just do straight lines to make channels, a grid, or a diamond pattern. For more experienced quilters, you may want to do an edge-to-edge free motion quilt design. Once you have your layout finished, it's time to create your quilt sandwich, which is called basting. I do this on the floor because my table isn't big enough. You do want a smooth, hard surface large enough for your quilt to lay flat. Lay your backing fabric right side down, then your batting on top. I smooth each layer as I go. You can also tape the backing down to the floor so that it doesn't shift. Then your quilt top goes right side up. I spend some time getting them all lined up evenly. I use a ruler to check that the edge of my quilt top and the edge of my backing are equal distance from one end to the other. Then I just smooth it all out until I don't feel any bumps or wrinkles. I work from the side that I've already aligned, smoothing towards the other side. I use safety pins to hold the sandwich together. I know some people like to use a basting spray, but that creates fumes and also extra waste. Ideally, you want the safety pins to be about 6 to 8 inches apart. I then roll up one end of the fabric to fit through the throat of my machine. For machine quilting straight lines and gentle curves, I always use a walking foot. A walking foot is an essential tool because it moves the top and bottom fabric at the same rate. I continually smooth the quilt sandwich as I sew, feeling for any wrinkles. Here, I felt a wrinkle, and so I reached between the layers of fabric to smooth it out. I started sewing my quilt from the middle out towards the rolled edge. I'm always sewing in the same direction each time rather than turning the quilt around. And about a quarter through, I take out the safety pins, smooth, and repin. When I get to the point of sewing the sun, I rebasted the quilt and rolled it into a sort of Taco Bell style Crunch Wrap Supreme so that I can maneuver it better through the machine. Sewing curves is trickier, so you want to take your time and go slow for that. After I finished the sun, I smoothed out and repinned again. Then I moved on to the twisty turns of the mountain lines. When I do stitching that doesn't extend to the edge of the quilt, I worry that it will unravel. But I also don't want to back stitch at the end of my line because that stitching will look a little bit thicker there. So the way that I handle that is I pull the front thread to the back side and tie it off. It's sort of a nitpicky thing to do. If you have a way you like to deal with this problem, please leave it in the comments. Here's my quilt Sammy all sewn up. Be on the lookout for the next video, which will be the trimming and binding. Be sure and subscribe so that you get notified when that's released. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. I'm really excited about my new whole cloth quilt top design, so I look forward to sharing more of those with you all. Take care.